In this video, we're going to be looking at how to convert between percentages and decimals. So to convert a decimal into a percentage, you must multiply the decimal times 100 or by 10 to the second, because remember 100 equals 10 to the second power. So thinking back to our scientific notation unit, whenever we would multiply something times 10 to the second power, that means that we're going to be moving our decimal 2 spaces to the right because our exponent was a positive 2. If there's an empty place value, make sure you put a 0 in it, and then be sure to add the percent sign after you move the decimal. So to practice here, we have 0.28. When I move my decimal 2 spaces to the right, I get 28 as my number. Now my decimal is technically right here, so that would be 28.0, but we know that's just the same as 28, and then we add our percent sign, so 28%. In our next example, we have 0.5, and then we're going to move it 2 spaces to the right. We fill in that empty loop, and that made the number 50, so 50%. 0.1, we have a decimal 2 spaces to the right. We make the number 10, and that means we have 10%. In this last one, we move our decimal 2 spaces to the right again, and that makes 62.5, and we add our percent sign. So if you're changing a decimal into a percentage, you're moving your decimal 2 spaces to the right. Now if you want to go back the other way and change a percent into a decimal, you just have to do the opposite. So to change a percentage back into a decimal, you must multiply the decimal by 1 over 100. That's the same as 10 to the negative 2. So if our exponent here is to the negative second, thinking back to scientific notation again, this means we're still moving it 2 spaces, but now we're going to move it to the left. So if there's any empty place values again, please make sure to put a 0 in it, and we do not add a percent sign, we take the percent sign away. So we start here with the number 33%, and we're going to put a decimal to the right of the number, that's where it is if we don't see it, and we have to move it 2 spaces to the left to turn this percent into a decimal. That means it's now to the left of this number, so we made 0.33 or 33 hundredths. And just to check that, 33 hundredths would be 33 over 100. If this is what you got on a test, you would have a 33% as your score, so that all matches there, so that looks good. As we look into our next example, we have 153%, and yes, you can have a percentage that's over 100. So we have 153, the decimal's all the way to the right. We are moving it 2 spaces to the left, so it becomes 1.53 as a decimal. 12.25%, our decimal is right here. We're moving it 2 spaces to the left, and now we've made 0.1225 or 1,225 ten-thousandths. In our last example, we have 75%. For 75%, 75 has a decimal all the way to the right. We're going to move it 2 spaces to the left, so we made 0.75 as our decimal.